This video was recorded in front of a live virtual audience. Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. Today we are traveling back in time. Either direction. Time. We don't know in which direction it goes. It goes in all directions. Vogue. But where was I? We're going to be reviewing Christian Dior under the guidance and artistic direction of Gianfranco Ferre. Fall-Winter 1991/1992 collection, back then called Christian Dior Boutique. It was the Pret-a-Porter range, not the Haute Couture range. Gianfranco Ferre was always named the architect of fashion. He would just like sketch out lines and movement, and that would then translate and transform into clothes. I mean, one of those geniuses. The architect of fashion. I wonder if we have any other today. I don't think so. Anyway, looking forward to this review. But before we get to it, if you like my channel, consider subscribing today. Push that subscription button. Next to the subscription button, push the join button and become a member as well. Gain access to extra perks. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together there as well, also for extra perks. And thank you to all the patrons and members who have already pledged. More about the perks at the end of this video. Thank you to all my co-chatters who are here live, because we are filming this live right now. My co-reviewers are waiting here on the side with me. And let's get to the video. I'm going to tell you a couple of things before we play it. This video is taken from the fashion channel on YouTube. Go check them out. They're amazing. They have a lot of beautiful vintage videos to showcase. The use of this video is for educational purposes and review purposes, and it falls under the fair use guidelines of YouTube. So thank you so much, Fashion Channel. Now, however, I changed the music because the music was copywritten. So I have added copyright-free music. Hope you're going to enjoy that. A little bit of a twist, a little bit of something modern, a modern touch to a wonderful collection from 1991. Christian Dior Boutique under the directorship of Gianfranco Ferre. Let's watch it together. Oh, look at that font, you guys. Oh man, with the typing on the... Okay, here we go. I mean, there's a lot of this. By the way, you know, this is just a couple of years after Poison was released. So we do have a typical for Christian Dior poison green. It's a deep, gorgeous, mossy green color. And this is kind of the edited together piece. I mean, it's still 15 minutes long. Oh, Linda Evangelista in her blonde phase. It's an edited together piece. Now, so we have the highlights of the show, but even though they're highlights, it's still a lot. Check this green out with the leathers, with the furs, and those sunglasses. Yes, that is crocodile covering the temples and the frames. And I mean, we're living for them. I mean, what can I say? I think Optil was still making them back then. Look at those cuffs, reminiscent of Chanel. Typical for Dior, those luxurious hats, which, yes, they were in the 90s, but they came straight from the 70s. And Gianfranco Ferre kept implementing them and utilizing them throughout the 80s and the 90s while he was at the helm of Dior, at the Maison Dior. Now, I also have to say, nobody like gorgeously brown-skinned and black models wears Dior. I don't know what it is about it, but it just, that style, it's most beautiful on darker skin. It's just really, really delicious. It just really fits extremely well. And it's a pity that not more darker skin models were used for and hired for this show. Because it's just the epitome of 80s/90s elegance for me. You know, to have that, the highest class of pret-a-porter, I don't know why, but it just, to me, it screams, I mean, hello? What, I mean, just, wow. I mean, the blonde ladies are great too, but And that haircut, that cut, like, you know, the coif thing, like to the side like this. Come on. These overalls with the belts. I love her nose, by the way. She's divine. The trench coats in all lengths. Short, long. There's a little bit of, you know, this is also the time when, I mean, this is Parisian fashion, but Dolce & Gabbana, you know, came out really big in this period. And there's a little bit of influence there as well. You know, they were the new kids on the block. And, oh, we were about to see Linda Evangelista also all decked up in gold next season for Chanel in the famous motorcycle collection, inspired collection, a little bit of S&M as well. But these brown hues with the faded, I mean, you see what I mean? Oh, the chocolate brown skin with these green hues. I mean, living just to have a poster with the beautiful outfit with these green hues. It just gorgeous, really. I mean, and yes, it's dated. You know what I mean? This doesn't feel like, sure, you could wear it today, but it feels like something that was perfectly confectioned for the early 90s. They had a lot of, you know, callback to the 70s, and there was still a lot of reminiscence of the 80s as this collection was made. But it has such a rooted, beautiful, imposing heft to it that you just can't help but look at it, at this collection, you know? And the velvets and the satins combined together give it even more depth and more richness. It's just like it just keeps on giving. And you might ask yourself, well, is this really Dior? I can tell you, yes, for the most part, it's very much Dior. And this is, you know, as I said before, Gianfranco Ferre being the architect of fashion. It's an architectural reinterpretation of the lines and the methodology of Christian Dior. Brought into the 90s, but with very, very clever and shrewd augmentations in certain spots, creating a line that has reminiscence of Dior, but updated. You know, and it's not so in your face like we are used to the canons of Chanel's linguistic style in fashion, you know, the chain, the camellia, the double, this and the, you know, the cut of the two-tone jackets with the circular collars. With Dior, you usually, when you think about Dior, you think about the new look, you think about the peplum, you think about that kind of tight, you know, jacket dress that opens up at the bottom. But Dior was more than just that. And the reinterpretation of those lines is something that Ferre was very good at. For example, you see, when he makes her twirl, everything lifts up in the proper way and then falls back down, almost like it's a building, like structurally falls back into place, stiff and yet flexible enough to move at the same time. Now we're getting to a more playful and witty composition. Almost touching base on that esoteric part of Christian Dior and his love of cards and tarot in a way. You have this whole kind of idea of, you see the cards everywhere? Almost like a casino, but it's also like playing with fate. And Gianfranco Ferre knew that about Dior, and so this implementation is playful, you know, very poster ready, very editorial ready, but necessary to play, expanding. That's also typical Ferre. So what he would do, he shows us the whole chessboard and the whole card game board, and then he zooms into that by creating an entire sweater, just that green dot on the game board, you know, and then another sweater is the red dot on that game board that we saw checkered in small. And that play of macro and micro is just, oh, so architectural. I mean, hello? Look at that. And all of a sudden, bam, we switch into this feline moment. And here the whole trick is about these, like how, you know, how the collar is done and how here the shirt parts here are kept together and opened and enhanced, and they stick out like thorns or like feathers in this case. Like rooftops on buildings. Again, very architectural. Look at that. Look at that patent leather cuffs on the sleeves as opposed to the soft silks and satins of the polka dotted dress, of the polka dotted skirts, shirts. Polka dots on the mini skirt. Look at that architectural element on the side. Very reminiscent of the 80s. But then again, we are only at the beginning of the 90s, so there's still a lot of residue of the 80s still left and still giving what it has to give. Bows were also very typical in the 80s. They're still here in the 90s, the early 90s. Fur combined with wool, silk, probably some lurex, and leather gloves. Here we enter almost a tribal phase of the collection where these necklaces assume a completely tribal element to what would appear a simple look. Now this is also very architectural, how that kind of peplum-y type of fall of the jacket, very Dior, just shortened. Now we even see the knee. We're going into that almost like a mini skirt version of what would have been a longer Dior piece in the 40s and 50s. Bronze hues, a big symbol, in particular in the 80s, of opulence. Not just gold, but also bronzy hues, bronzy green hues of gold. More of that game card, game table. A little bit of Las Vegas done a la Christian Dior. Carla Bruni, very young back then, wearing this little nifty piece. All the details, all the embroidery. Really, really gorgeous. Brown is a color that's not often utilized in fashion nowadays. It's a pity. I adore brown. Helena Christensen is just being her tool-ishous beautiful self. Here we have a little bit more. I think this is velvet. It's a very, very delicate velvet. It's gorgeous with padded stoles and jackets. You see the simplicity of this dress, but then we got that fluffy, padded, almost blankety, contrasting piece, which is quite stiff and again very architectural. It's like you carry your own rooftop with you. A blankety little surrounding for the body, like the walls that could surround the body. So very Gianfranco Ferre. Look how elegant. He transforms a blanket into like the most elegant piece for the runway. Keeps you warm. It's also practical if you're on the red carpet and it's in the middle of winter and you're a lady and you gotta be half naked because that's what the film industry demands of you. Well, now you have the solution to that. You can wear a padded Dior silk blanket. Or you could wear blue feathers. That baby blue, now we're back to the 50s all of a sudden. With the hairdos, with the marabou jackets, and the checkered tops. Again, we're playing a game here. Gianfranco Ferre is telling us, are you ready, to play with the deck of cards? Are you ready to receive your card number? Are you ready to poker it out? Because my models are basically that playing table on which all your fantasies can be projected onto. Yeah, there is a nuance there. It could be sexualized as well, but doesn't have to be. It can also mean that it's a form of expression. And this is a sort of a tableau vivant on which you can project all your fantasies onto, creative ideas as well. This is a very Marilyn Monroe moment, especially with that pink one. Very, very much Marilyn. I have to say this collection is still very 80s. There are some elements which we will see developing further in the 90s in terms of shapes, silhouettes, and contrasts between tight and loose. But a lot of what we see here is still 80s. Like this hairdo, for example. It's very traditional. I mean, it's also very Dior. Gianfranco Ferre was quite a traditional aesthetic with an aesthetical vision person. And so this is also very Dior. I mean, this is something Grace Kelly could have worn in some Hitchcock movie, honestly. That pink piece that Linda Evangelista just wore. And then this could have been worn in the movie Mannequin from the 80s with Kim Cattrall. Kim Cattrall could have worn it. You know, again, this hairdo, this is early 90s, late 80s, so, but it's still very, you know, very 80s. This is completely 80s. This could have been 50s. Could have been Givenchy as well, and you know, it's kind of in many ways, oh, this is to die for. Talk about an editorial piece. So this is where all the evening gowns really like kick the runway towards the end of the show. This is where, you know, the Maison shows all of its creativity in terms of, if you get to walk the red carpet dressed in Dior, you will be on all the tabloids. You are going to steal the show. I mean, this is so gorgeous. Also, look, you see how architectural he is? He hides all of that taffeta underneath that silk or satin top. And as she moves, it opens up like wings, and then it just kind of lands again. And the dress, the bodice as well, is between mattified black and a more silky black. Panels, literally like walls. Panels and layers of architecture. Sometimes he goes organic when he would add flowers and feathers, but whenever there's nothing organic, Ferre reverts back to strict architectural lines. And I like that he blends. You see also here the cut here, look at these lines, that's very Christian Dior, huh? This part here. And the whole pant, you see red on red, but we're playing with velvet and kind of a cottony material as well to contrast how it reflects light, just like you would think in architecture, how you would build the facets, the facades of the building so that they contrast and reflect light in different ways, where to put glass as opposed to where to put bricks. He thinks in the same way when he constructs clothing. Again, velvet on top. At the bottom we have this wool, could be satin. They absorb light in different ways. The sequined bow, glittery as opposed to the satiny cape. There is Gianfranco Ferre, the maestro, with oh, there you go, Linda on one side. Again, look at the difference in materials. He did that on purpose. We got different flowing materials. There he is, Gianfranco. I mean, you know, he was a cutie, wasn't he? So I don't know. What do you guys think? I really love everything he did. You know, I have a lot of respect and love for him. What are your opinions? Let me get to the chats. Emilio says, Ferre, real thick back in the day. Fabulous collection, says Jam. MK says they had more charisma and were more one-of-a-kind type of gal. Nowadays, models all look the same, but I've seen some improvements in recent years. Jam says, MK, also remember, Linda was 26 here, so definitely a woman. I'm saying they're not 15, 17 years old, says Debbie. Olfactory Story says, wow, that pink cape. Ole. Yeah, it is a little bit ole. The supermodels were much better back then, says Jam. And then MK says, mind you, clients back then were much older than what they are nowadays. I just want to feel those textures. And Emilio says, especially the hair and makeup. It's diet 80s, says Emilio. Yes, these are women, says Jam. Seriously, says Olfactive, nowadays models seem lifeless compared to those ones. Yeah. MK says to Jam, it is a nice show with some good ideas. If Chanel ever came up with the exact same thing, Virginie Viard would get crucified. Everything definitely need to be revamped. The models are not teenagers, says Debs. Where did MILF come from? Oh my God, you guys. Oh, I said nobody uses brown, and then Madame says, except for Tom Ford, he seems to only use brown. He uses earthy tones a lot, but I wouldn't say really brown, like chocolate brown. Factor Story says, I feel like the models were more expressive. Amina says, it's giving MILF artsy secretary, not really feeling it. I would definitely, Jam says, I would definitely have this collection. I would prefer this collection compared to Chanel's new collection any day. Yes, that velvet, says Debbie. I know we love that velvet, don't we? So regal, says Jam. Jam says, oh, that velvet. I could wear these coats, says Olfactive Stories. Yeah, they're delicious coats. Amina says, all of them would like to speak to the manager. Oh my God. Debbie says, not dated to me. It feels fresh, except for the hair. MK says, the style. It actually reminds me of my mother and aunties back in the early 1990s. I rewatched Woody Allen's Murder in Manhattan with Angelica Houston, also adopted this style in the movie. And then you corrected to Diane Keaton. Debbie says, buttery leather. It is very buttery leather. I adore swing coats. They're really cool, but swing coats, like, you gotta have a specific body type, not necessarily too skinny, but you have a specific body type to pull it off. Screams sophisticated, says Jam. I like it, says Olfactive Stories. Oh, Scarabée Green was popular lately. Or back then was very popular. Opulence. We own everything, says I'm Louis. Oh yes, this is fashion, says Deb. Yeah, this is French fashion, especially in the 90s. But this is one of those rare examples. People always tell me, like, Dacob, why do you say Italians can't do French fashion? I always say there is an exception, and that is Gianfranco Ferre. Gianfranco Ferre did Dior justice. Madame says, love that green. It's a beautiful green, isn't it? Oof. And rendered so deliciously well in the leather form as well. I loved it, says Olfactive Stories. Harry says, bows are not my favorite motif, and there's so much of it. Love the casino aesthetic though. Red and green is an underrated color combo. Hard to do right and not to get Christmas vibes though. Georgina says, just wow, the coppers and chocolates. I know, they're delicious, aren't they? Oh, it's cute how Dior was called Christian Dior Boutique. Yeah, Jam, I know it was. Well, guys, thank you for co-reviewing the show with me. That's where it's at. That is, or that used to be Christian Dior, and that used to be Gianfranco Ferre for Christian Dior. And unfortunately, Gianfranco Ferre passed away. And not many people talk about him or remember him really, but we should. He deserves more memory, you know. Nowadays, when you say Dior, you think, Galliano. But before Galliano, there was also, Dior. And it was not as a screechy, screaming Dior, but it was nevertheless a wonderful, elegant, composed, architectural Dior. And that was Gianfranco Ferre. And it's a wonderful time period in the history of Christian Dior, and I'm super happy that Ferre got to, boost his vitality and creativity into the house of Dior, so kudos to that. If you like this video, thumb it up, you guys, and let the algorithm know that we're doing a good thing here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and push the join button next to the subscription button. Become a member today and gain access to extra perks. Join me also on Patreon. Become a patron today. Super Dacob all spelled together on Patreon. And as a patron or as a member, one of the perks you get that I mentioned at the beginning of the video is, for example, being listed here in the scrolling credits as a co-producer of the Fashion Bunker. Your name listed forever in the videos to come. But also, you get access to videos that never come to YouTube. You get access to videos that preview outside of YouTube first. And you get access to the entire reruns of the live streams that come very often on my channel. No pun intended. But you also get extra emojis, special badges of honor, little perfume bottles that fill up with more time. The more you stay a member and the more they fill up. So there's a lot of perks. You get reductions for the merch store as well. I mean, you name it, it's there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's kind of nice to watch these older vintage fashion shows because it makes you feel like you're not only traveling back in time, but it makes you feel like you're already there. You know, I mean, you've been there if you were born back then already, but it feels like something that belongs to humanity because it's so beautiful that you're kind of really proud that it's a part of humanity, that something so beautiful was created. And it's a good feeling. You know, it's also a good feeling to know that not everything in this life is ugly. There are also beautiful things to look at. As superficial as this sounds, you know that it also strikes a deeper chord. And aesthetics and beauty and the feeling for proportions and shapes is rooted within human nature. We strive towards this sort of perfection, and there's a depth to that as well. It's not just superficial. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.